Hey guys, Zach here, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to show you guys how to change your fuel pump in the Cefiro A31. The original one obviously can't really cope up with the RB20. It could, but not as good. And obviously with the RB25, I don't really think it will cope it up, especially with the bigger injectors, bigger turbos and stuff like that. As you guys know, I'm going to be transplanting the RB25DET Neo into the car. I'm gonna retain it as stock as possible first to make sure that the car runs, the engine is fine, everything is fine, and then sooner or later I'll change the turbos and the injectors and stuff like that. Between one issue is that I've already changed the pump before this because the car actually died midway in the middle of the road, so I had to replace it. Thankfully the car died somewhere near Bandar Sunway, so I had a Grab delivery to go and get and purchase me a fuel pump, which is a TI Automotive pump. It's running 450 lph, which is it's really high. Yeah, it's really high actually. It's sufficient enough for the car actually, to be honest. Even with RB25 with a GDX 35, it should be sufficient. So but one thing is that I didn't have the fuel filter, see, so I'm going to be replacing the fuel filter. At the same time, I'll walk you through how to actually remove and replace your fuel pump. Alright, so before we begin, the first thing you want to do is make sure you unplug your battery terminal and also your fuel pump relay, and give it a few crank to make sure there's no fuel pressure inside your fuel line, and that way if you start to remove the hose and stuff like that, fuel won't just splatter around. So as you can see, I've opened the four 10mm bolts, and that way you will have access to the tank and the fuel head there. There will be two hose clips, one is the return line and one is the feed line. You want to remove those first before you remove the head. Just make sure to just slide it out and put it at the side. It will be a little bit hard to remove the hose from the head. What I like to do is put a hot towel or rag and just let it sit, and you'll slide it over easily. Now I'm just cleaning up all the fuel to make sure, as you know, when you remove the fuel lines, all this fuel is going to spatter around as well. So like I'm showing here, that is the fuel pump relay, the green one that I showed earlier. So now I'm just removing the head. The first thing what I did was, as you know, it's been rusted and the car is 25 years old. Everything starts to feel rusty and stuff like that. So I just loosen up a little bit, probably 180 to 360 degree turn. Loosen up all the 6 8mm screws. Yep, 6 8mm bolts. They are also Phillips head that you can use your screwdriver, but I will suggest not to, because that is the last resort if you ever to strip it. So using the Phillips screw will be stripped easily. Now I'm gonna just use my gun with the magnetic holder, that way I don't drop the bolts once it's loosened up. As you can see here, it's much more easier. And I'm just gonna unscrew all first and make sure that you keep it all at the side. And once that's done, you can just remove the fuel pump easily, just like that. Now let's back it up again. So I'm going to show you guys how to actually remove. One thing, the Cefiro has a bucket, but the bucket is actually inside the fuel tank itself. It's not together like how all modern cars is. So removing it is quite easy, but the fuel level is actually outside the bucket. So you got to make sure that you remove it in an angle, that way you don't snap the fuel level and stuff like that. So I'm going to show you. You pull it towards the back. Alright, get the fuel pump out. Now the fuel level is going to be on the right side, as you can see here that I'm showing you. Alright, so you want to gently just pull it out and push it towards the front. And now, as you can see, it's all out. So now I'm going to show you the wiring as well. So the first wire from the back facing the front, the back one, that's the positive wire for the fuel pump, and the third one is the ground for the fuel pump. The second and the fourth is actually for the fuel level, and the fifth one at the end is actually the ground for the top hat. So that's all. I've already wired the fuel pump. As you can see, there's a 450 lph TI Automotive pump. I'm not going to show that, but it's basically very simple. Just power up the positive and the negative and cable tie it to the hat. So now I'm going to remove the fuel filter, and as you can see how dirty it is. It's extremely dirty. That fuel filter actually was cleaned out earlier, so buang dulu kan. So this is the new filter. Bau wangi bau kedai and it feels really fresh and nice. And now you're just gonna plug it in. There is a notch there. You gotta make sure that it's a correct angle notch, and there's a C-clip, so you gotta really push in the fuel filter until you hear a clip, and it'll be seated just perfect. Alright, so now I'm gonna put it back. So as you can see, you gotta make sure that the fuel level goes in first, and make sure it's outside the bucket. Once it's outside the bucket, just push the lever and you can sit the pump back inside, and you can go in all the way in. It's that simple. Also make sure that you clean out the outer side of the tank, so when you put it in, no debris is actually going to fall in. Now I'm going to plug in back the hose. One thing, don't worry about it, I will explain later in the video, but you can't really miss the orientation for the hose, because there's a coupler there that holds it left and right side, so you can't really mess it up. The right side is the feed line, left side is the feed line I think, and the right side is the return. I'm not so sure, but I'll check it back again. So now I'm just screwing it by hand first. As you can see, I'm using the Phillips first because it's not that hard to actually screw in. Once that's done, all you have to do is just put back the cover, screw up the 4 10mm bolts, and that's it. That's all to it. Well, the camera died halfway, so that's all the video to it, but it's basically just the same. And that's how you replace your fuel pump and your fuel filter. Hey guys, alright, so I'm so sorry the battery died halfway. GoPro though, the battery doesn't really last. I was finishing and installing everything, and I realized that the battery actually died. So just want to point out that the two holes that goes into the return and the outlet, the inlet and the outlet, you can't really mess it up, because inner part of the hose side you can't really see unless you're like really looking into the tank. There's a coupling where it separates those holes, so you can't really switch it around. It's basically impossible to switch it around unless you push out the hose all the way and twist it. But yeah, don't do that. Just push the hose to the side a little bit, so that way you can get access to the hose after that. So this is the original fuel pump. What happened was, when the car died, well, the pump was working actually. It's just that this wire right here, yeah, that thing actually came out. So I didn't know that, and I was thinking it was probably the relay. But when I hot wired the relay as well, direct current, constant power, the pump wasn't running as well. I mean, if you really put your ear to it, you'll be able to hear a little bit of humming at least, but it wasn't. So I thought the pump was dead, but turns out that the wire actually just slides out. You can see there's no more, it's just pure conductor. Dia punya apa, the outer shell of the wiring, it wasn't there anymore. So yep, actually the pump is huge though. It's really big. It's really big, but obviously the TI Automotive is much more better. So yep, that's about it. Thank you so much for watching always, guys. I really appreciate it. Do like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Ciao guys.